Hi, my name is Timothy Hunt, and I'm the director here for Personal Counseling Services. Welcome to Flyers Take Flight. On this episode of Flyers Take Flight, I get a chance to interview the dynamic duo of Sandhills Community College, the fabulous Dr. Julie Voigt, our Dean of Instruction, and the phenomenal my sister from another mister, Miss Shenika Ward, our Director of Financial Aid. Dr. Voigt and Shenika discuss their personal and professional discovery of becoming allies on campus, colleagues on a mission for change here at Sandhills Community College.
Okay, we're going now.
So how long have y'all known each other?
That's a good question. I don't think either. Can you? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, how long have you been here?
I've been here for 4 years.
I will have been here 11 in January, which is insane to me.
I remember my introduction to her.
Tell her.
She'll turn red in the face. You won't be able to see that.
My nose turns red when I get stressed. I know it's like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed like beacon.
It was like 2 years ago, maybe. There was a Black History program put on by the Diversity Committee, and I had some role. I think I was just like there to help or something.
You were sitting right in front of me.
Yeah, and there were community members on campus, and there's a lady that I specifically remember. So I think Bill Pope had his class in there. Mm-hmm. There was an African-American student. There was a white student. The white student had on khakis and like a button-up. Mm-hmm. The black student had on a hoodie, and his hair was kind of like out. Now, this student in particular was a phenomenal student, an athlete, did really well, but we were asked to talk about the perceptions of those students. And so obviously the perception was like, you're in a hoodie, your hair's all over the place, you're a thug. And then this, white student, you have on khakis, you're a nice young man. And so there was like a conversation about it. Well, there was someone, we got to talking about stuff, and police brutality was a thing then. And at this time, my son was 3 or 4, he was 4. And the lady, she had to be in her 70s. She was like, well, I don't understand why the black boys just don't put their hands out the window when the cop comes to the car. And I could feel my insides boiling, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I said, ma'am, why do I need to have a different conversation with my son than you need to have with your son? I shouldn't have to do that. I do, but I shouldn't have to. And I mean, I didn't know who was behind me. I just knew I couldn't be quiet in that moment. Well, this was a Friday. On Sunday, I remember riding around, and I checked my email, and I had an email from Julie, this long email. And I remember sitting in the car crying because Julie was apologizing or saying like, I see you. And she's like, I'm sorry that people just don't get it. But prior to that, like I had kind of seen Julie in passing. Mm-hmm. But after that, there was like an immediate connection for me, the fact that she got it. She got it. She heard that, and I guess she had pondered it from that Friday and Saturday and just decided to send me an email on Sunday. And from then, I think I like saw her one day, like, I have so much respect for you, And so it's just been like a mutual respect and admiration that I've had since that day. We have very transparent conversations.
Yes.
We're due for one. We haven't had one in a while. And so, it's just like an evolving friendship that I'd say I have with her.
Julie, what caused you to send the email? What was it about that moment?
Well, I mean, in thinking back, in sociology, my greatest passion personally definitely is in terms of inequities that exist in society, in particular when it comes to the black and white community. The unique history that exists there, and it's a lot of what I did my dissertation on. Actually, was letters to my students in the classroom on resistance to understanding inequities in history and how those things intersect. And so I've always been a part of those kinds of presentations. I've been there, sometimes in the back, sometimes just in a supporting role, because that's my department. Bill's part of my department for SBS, and we've done these things over the years. And so listening to that, I first thought that was so brave. And just being proud to be in that moment and experiencing that, but also disheartened at the same time. And then thinking about that, and I've had conversations with my students about how, with parenting and things that we have to do in terms of white folks, really the privilege of not having to have those conversations at all. And I have 2 sons. I have 2 daughters and I have 2 sons. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to have to, I might have to talk about general safety, right? But I will never have to talk to them in the context of race and their safety. And when it comes to police brutality, when it comes to statistically all the things that happen to people of color. And so, but what I have a responsibility to do is to talk to my sons about that brutality. And I saw the pain, and it's palpable to feel that and to know it and to know that I don't have to do that, and nor should you ever have to do that. I felt like I just had to tell her that, yeah. And so ever since then, it's just, we don't get to see each other. We probably get to see each other more now that you're just across the building, but it very, very much feels like running into somebody that I've known my entire life. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a kindred spirit kind of connection there.
Yep.
So.
That's neat. That's a neat story to share with our listeners. So here's a bigger question. When did you both realize that you were allies here?
I don't know. I think for me, it started in that moment, and then I started to pay more attention to Julie and listen to the things, that she said or the information that she put out, because I'm not as a Black woman, I'm not very trusting, it's kind of, let me get to know you. But I got the email and I was so appreciative. But then when I watched her and I listened, I'm like, it wasn't just an email to make herself feel good. She breathes this. She's really listening. She wants to know how she can jump in and help. And so just kind of over time realizing that she's somebody that I could trust and be transparent with. This is so sad. I don't remember the question. I don't.
We don't get some ginkgo biloba in here.
I'm talking, and as I'm talking, I'm like, what was the question? What am I supposed to be answering?
The question was, Queen. And Shenika is a queen. That's why I refer to her as queenlessness. When did you two realize that you were allies?
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it.
You're going to make me work today. You're going to make me work.
Yeah, when I realized I could trust her, that's what, that's what it was.
To kind of build on what you said, for you being a Black woman that's got trust issues when it comes to other races.
Absolutely. I've been taught that.
Yeah, I know.
I've been taught that.
What's that like to discover, oh my God, this woman's for real. She's legit.
I'm big on
sees me.
I'm big on energy, and and discernment, and either you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I know. Either you have it or you don't. And so for me, she has it. And so that's, yeah, we're taught growing up. I don't know, I think that's a struggle. People don't want to talk about the things they were taught growing up.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't you trust them?
Yeah.
Don't you trust them? That's the truth. And some might not want to hear that, but that is, you look out. You look out for your own.
Well, how does it feel to hear that about being an ally and being someone,
Humbling.
a person of color, recognizes they can trust?
Humbling. Absolutely. I don't deserve that. nor did I ever expect that would be given. And so for me, that's a very high compliment in terms of someone trusting me. I screw up all the time, but I keep trying, and I believe in the mission of the community college and what we do, and I believe in that in terms of education and equity, and I believe that everybody deserves a good life, and that you shouldn't have to tell your son something different from mine, and I will fight for that. I'm not always as vocal. Most of the time, I'm truly painfully introverted, and I'm one of those people where you probably need to give me questions prior to the meeting if you really want, because I have to process. It's just my way of doing things. But it's an honor to feel trusted, but I don't deserve that, but I'm grateful for that, for sure.
I'm just sitting in the presence of two people that carry a lot of weight on campus. And so how does this relationship that the two of you have, how does it translate to the work that you do here at Sandhills for our students? And I'll ask that again.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a notepad. We got a whiteboard. Yeah. I'm gonna write it down.
That's a good question.
All my questions are good.
You've got good questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say, like, in terms of allyship, like, I know that I can come to you and I could probably be very, like, honest and say to you, which I have been, I'm like, I just need you to call me out if I'm missing the boat. Like, what am I not seeing that I should be seeing? Why am I feeling this way or thinking this way, and is there another way to look at it? I feel that way. I feel like I can come to you and say, something, and get a real honest answer if I'm torn about decisions that I'm making or what's going on. In particular, when we're talking to you about being kind of thrown together in the diversity inclusion initiatives and having those conversations.
Man, I think a part of trusting someone is, I heard this on the radio this morning, the difference between being honest and being transparent. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer, but being transparent is more about me telling it to you without you asking. And I don't remember what exactly it was. You did some type of presentation. This is before you were dean. And I came, there was I don't know if your class was in, but it was in Van Dusen. And there was a conversation going on about, at this time, LGBTQ.
Oh, the gender, yeah.
There was something going on. And I said something from my space of ignorance. And you were like, well, what about this? And I want to say you checked me. You didn't, and it wasn't in a rude way, but it was like, hey, why don't you open up your thoughts to this? Because I'm not perfect either. And we all have some level of bias sometimes that we don't recognize still exists. So even in my place of, being a minority in that moment, I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about it, but I'm glad she said that. I'm not offended at all because, there's some things I just, don't realize or I didn't realize. And so for me, it wasn't I don't need friends who are yes people. Yes, everything you said is correct and they should have agreed. No, if there's something wrong or something I need to kind of rethink, let's talk about it. And so for me, that's how I trust people. That's how I can be transparent when I know that people are transparent with me and not just telling me what I want to hear. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, and I think that's, I think people have a real difficult time with conflict. But I honestly think that the one way that you really know that people care about you is when they're willing to tell you, even though the conflict may arise, what they see or what's going on, and I think that's really important. Those hard conversations are difficult and draining depending on the context, but if you really care about people, if you really, really, truly care, then you're going to be honest and transparent, especially when somebody asks you. You know, if you really want me to tell you what I think, I'll tell you. But it's because I care about you. It's not because I don't. It's because I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not always right, but, you know, I'll always be honest.
Good. I like that. So, are you both serving on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Did I hear that correctly?
I don't know that I'm an official member.
I just recently became an official member. In fact, my first meeting was this last Tuesday.
Yeah. And as a director of student life, it was like a pull all the time. And so I would always tell Alfreda, like, if you need me, like, I'm here, let me know what you need. But I wasn't like a consistent presence in meetings. Like, I don't know that I went to more than one meeting. But, you know, in this role, maybe I'll have the opportunity to get to meetings. I would like to be a part of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So with everything that we're talking about today, how does that translate into the racial pandemic that we've got going on? And the need for allies? Well, I mean, we had a situation go down in the class that I'm taking at NC State last night, where one of our students was calling out the white folks that did not stand up and become an ally, when we're all saying, hey, we're training to become these counselor education, social justice advocates, and yet you guys aren't doing the very thing. You want to talk about it, you want to hypothesize about it, and think about it in a higher level, but in the practical part of, hey, this article that we read is racist. And it was called out by a very bright, lovely African-American female, but no one backed her up except for the other African-American students in the class. And she used last night's class to bring that up, to point that out, and it got very uncomfortable, and I was like, wow, this needed to happen. Like, this is important. It's so important to have those uncomfortable conversations, that conflict, so that people can learn and grow if you are really going to be about this kind of work and work with students and working populations where you're going to have folks that there's a disadvantage or what's the word I'm looking for? An inequality.
Yeah.
So, question is, how do we benefit from that? How do we take what's happening here and begin to multiply it and make it more prevalent on our campus here at SEC?
I think it starts with something like this, like conversations. Me and Julie ran into each other this morning, and like she was on my mind, and like I'll be driving, but I can't like text her and say, hey, we need to get together, blah, blah, blah. So we were like, okay, we're going to get together this week. And I still didn't send you a text when I got back to my office. But I forgot.
Just you did it in your mind.
Yeah. But I think, being an ally is important because the example you just shared, a black woman spoke up and other black women supported her. So it's like, here they go again. Here they go again. Mm-hmm. But if it's coming from someone that looks like Julie, right. I think as an ally, it's like, people might see it from a different perspective. If she is able to understand, maybe not empathize, but able to like understand that there is a problem, like I see a problem, and have a conversation, and maybe she can relay that to people who look like her, because I can't relay how I feel to someone that just doesn't want to get it anyway, and they don't look like me, and they've been brought up in a family that has made them believe that they're superior, so nothing that I say, I'm just complaining. But if, someone that looks like Julie were to say it and offer her perspective, then it might be received by people that wouldn't otherwise receive it.
Which is truly unfortunate, but I absolutely agree. I mean, I've seen quite a few times in my life where, in particular, Black women get cornered. It becomes trying to explain or understand what's going on, and then the rebuttal is, denial, and then it gets a little heated, and then it becomes you're getting angry about this. Like, why are you so defensive about this?
Yeah, that's what angry
and that's,
Black women.
Exactly. And then that perpetuates that stereotype. So it's like, what can you say without that? And the rationalization on the other end is, but you are getting angry, but you are. And part of me is like, even in those conversations, like, yeah, she has a right to be angry.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with being angry at a system that's unjust? What's wrong with being angry that you have to worry about every single time your son steps out the door? Yeah, I would be really angry.
Yeah.
But the anger is interpreted differently based upon the stereotypes and the stigmas attached to that. And so where do we get? We get nowhere.
How do we begin to get somewhere?
Ooh, gotta change the system.
Which is hard.
Yes.
So hard.
But it has to be something that's changed within the structure of how we operate. It has to be everything. I mean, if I were going to talk specifically to the community college experience, right? Everything from our strategic plan to our mission, it starts there. And it starts with our educators as well. If you don't understand, if you don't have training, I'm a firm believer of education. I'm a firm believer that there's so much out there that I don't know and that I need to be trained. And I believe that protects people as well. Because you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people aren't taught about inequities and one of the interesting conversations I had with a colleague recently was just like the different perspectives of belonging to a collective versus not. And I definitely genuinely would argue that white folks don't see themselves as a white collective in terms of our race. We see ourselves as individuals who, do not identify in that way. And so where people are in understanding racial inequities, it varies across the board. Because it's hard to identify and understand if you think of yourself as somebody who's separate from a system. But the reality is none of us are separate from the system at all. We perpetuate and we are a part of that system. So how do you change it? And you have to call people in to change it, and that means education.
What do you think, Shenika?
What's the question?
How do you change?
How would you?
This is not a joke.
First of all, wait. Black song is sensitive. I heard your little whisper. How you change? And you know me, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to get you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna change the question.
Okay, thank you.
What would
It's
you?
one of our core values, opportunity. Give me another opportunity here.
Oh Jesus, hold me.
Take the wheel.
Take the wheel, Lord. I wasn't prepared. So, with your experiences and what you do here now, tell us about your new job. Because we haven't talked about it.
Okay, so I'm now the Director of Financial Aid and Veterans Affairs.
Money, baby, money. Oh, you're not one of those? We don't.
Mm-mm.
No, we don't do that.
No, I don't make it rain.
So,
No, I don't make it rain.
with grants.
Oh yeah. Make it rain with scholarships and grants and
yeah.
Pell.
Yeah, program. Come on,
Yeah.
make it rain.
Sorry.
I've got people that are like, that lady downstairs, she made it rain.
Make it rain. Yeah.
So, how in your new job would you be able to take what we're talking about today and exact change?
I think it starts with what Julie just talked about, education, and perception. When not changing your tone or your demeanor or your attitude when a student of color comes up to the desk, and not making generalizations about why they're there, and they just want to get a Pell Grant, they're going to drop the class. The perceptions exist. Unfortunately, there are people who abuse the system, but my goal is to get to know students as individuals, to get them here, and if I'm not mistaken, the percentage is about 70% of our students receive some sort of financial aid. It might be a little bit higher. But to allow that for all students, and find ways to be able to make an education happen for all students, regardless of what they look like or where they come from. So,
and it sounds like the two of you are both talking about the core value of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
That's been part of the series and the podcast is talking about a sense of belonging, but by doing exactly what you're talking about, education, the way that you're treating people, that creates this sense of belonging where they'll believe that they can trust the nice director at financial aid that's going to help them and see them for who they are, as well as our dean of instruction, and her level of being able to go in and educate the instructors here and everyone, so that we can make this a place that's safe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning, but I'm listening. First of all, the staff in financial aid is amazing, and I'm learning from them already. And as I'm listening to them, I have thought about opportunities to work with Julie. I coming in, see some gaps in terms of when students withdraw and the conversations that we're not having with students. And so there's so much opportunity, and when there's a relationship like this, it's easy to just say, hey, why are we doing this? Or can we do this? And so that for me is exciting, to be able to collaborate with someone that I already have a relationship with, because I really think that's what it's all about, relationships, with our colleagues, relationships with students, because I think that's what makes all the difference. If in terms of a student dropping, maybe they didn't need to drop. And if someone had a conversation, maybe they wouldn't have, and so, again, I think it's about relationships and yeah.
And trusting, that email that email correspondence we had the other day, I knew that when I was sending you and Cynthia that email for that student, I was like, I'll take care of it, because I've witnessed it enough to know that, we take care of students here. People, particularly in financial aid now, with you and Cynthia, they're going to handle folks.
Yeah.
We're going to take care of them.
We're going to try our best.
Yeah. That's neat. So, I'm not sure where we are with time.
We're about 28 minutes.
Okay. In terms of the future of the college, as it relates to where we're moving in everything that we're talking about today, where do you see it? What's your hope?
Wow, that's a big question.
It is.
Two powerhouses in front of me. You can answer that question.
And I've actually kind of thought about it in terms of, I feel like it's almost like, here we go again with this word, but I see, diversity, equity, inclusion embedded throughout everything that we do, within courses, within student activities, financial aid, marketing. I see it more as a proactive measure and less of a reactive, like, oh, this is on the news. Let's do it. Let's talk about it now. But I see it as more, especially, leadership. Like, I feel like Dr. Dempsey is really on it now. Like, he's serious about voting. He is serious about diversity, equity, and inclusion being a topic that is not, talked about for a moment and then we forget about it. He wants it to stay at the forefront of what we do. And so I think in terms of belonging and inclusiveness, I think that's going to be something that is truly embedded in all that we do in the future.
Dr. Voigt?
I feel the same. I would love to see us go in that direction. Part of me, on the one hand, feels like all of us are allies. We're allies to our students. We as educators are allies for the common good. And if you believe in justice, if you believe in a democratic society, if you believe that voice matters, then we should all have that responsibility of being an ally, period. So my hope would be that like you said, being more proactive, not being reactive to currently what's going on, but recognizing that it's always important. It's always at the center of what we do, because it truly is. Whether you're a student who is in poverty, whether you're a student who has ability versus disability, having those conversations about inclusiveness holistically as well, thinking about, the highest suicide rate is among our LGBTQ community.
Right.
And so thinking about what that means for that community, thinking about the single parents. The irony is that, we're already doing the inclusive part. We already represent so many pieces of a much larger society. But how do we put things in place to make it easier for individuals? And looking at statistics too. I'm a firm believer that, I'm a social scientist, so I think that you have to look at the numbers. You have to look at what's going on at your institution and who's your most vulnerable population. Because it goes back to equity. If you're not providing for one particular group, based on the resources that are needed, and you think of this idea of like sameness and treating everybody the same, you can't do that, because that's not the reality of the world we live in. There's historical pieces of our society that have made it very challenging for people to get ahead. And there are groups of people who've had a head start for a very long time. So what do? It's not about treating people unfairly. It's about providing resources where they are needed, because you believe that everybody deserves this. Everybody deserves a good life.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very fortunate to call to be friends. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed this interview. Thank you for sharing your story.